You're listening to another episode of the Anna Vivo podcast. Thank you for your time.
Welcome to Shorts,
the part of the show where we regularly interrupt your scheduled programming to bring you content of relative interest.
Thanks for listening.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Anna Vivo podcast. We are coming to you live from the homely, warm office of my home, joined today by our favorite co-host, Sizzly Steve.
What'd I do?
And we are here today to present 4 topics. This is going to be a 4-part series. You can, of course, listen to them in any order, but we will be doing 4 very interesting to us topics that we have been thinking about and discussing offline a lot. And so a lot of this comes from our imagination of like when we have our own conversations and wish they were recorded.
Yeah.
But also a lot of this comes from the new Chat GPT, who comes up with a lot of our ideas.
Yeah.
Why don't you tell the audience what that is, Stephen? For those that don't know what this is, tell the audience.
It's like your best imaginary friend ever.
An imaginary friend in real life.
Who's really smart and just never tires of talking.
So how else can you describe ChatGPT? Because that's going to lead into actually my first topic today.
So if you had an imaginary friend who's really smart, then you could be like, hey, can you write an article for me? Or can you tell me about the solar system? Or can you do this math problem for me? It's a chat bot that's pretty smart based on the internet.
So speaking of the internet, you are listening to us here on our setup, our podcast setup. And first of all, we have to put in the disclaimer always that this is not a professional recording studio. Neither of us are professional recording or audio engineers. And so we do apologize for any of the other random things you hear in the background, like my dog or our children or my wife or others who are randomly roaming around the home office space. At the same time, we are doing this particular episode on the ethics of machine learning and AI and machine learning in general and the advancements of machines and things like that. And so why we're starting with this topic, and to Stephen's chagrin, I am looking away from him, not in his eyeballs. And I have to look back at you. How do you feel about that?
No, it's not to my chagrin.
It's not to your chagrin.
No, I enjoy not having eye contact with you.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy. So this is a great setup. What we have going on right now, we've got 2 mic booms that are swiveled away from each other, and we're back to back looking at our own screens to give you the visual. So who knows what kind of eye signals or hand signals you're telling me? Cut it. We're losing the audience. Okay. Also, as a reminder for those listening, maybe for the first time, if you have feedback and you want it to be live, call in or email me directly, tim.c.miller@outlook.com. If we get a question from the audience and it is post-recording, we will always get back to you and give a shout-out on the next episode. We do publish weekly, so stand by for that every week. I think we're shooting for Tuesdays. I'm looking back at you. Tuesdays are day that we release these. Right?
Mondays.
Yeah,
give it the schedule.
Yeah, you're right. Mondays. Okay. Every Monday, we are publishing a new episode for you right here at annavivo.com, and you can click on scroll down on anavivo.com and click on any of those icons, Apple Podcast, Spotify, Google Podcasts, any of the favorite platforms that you like to listen to, or just right there on the website as well. Okay. Chat GPT. It's a recent, I don't know, not invention, but a recent program. If you go to openai.com, or if you just Google Chat GPT, you can, assuming the server is not overloaded, ask this AI bot whatever you want, and it will, to the best of its ability, pull together lists for you, sentences, responses, paragraphs, stories, whatever you want. And it's actually pretty accurate. So one of our fellow friends here he's in college, and he did a paper on I don't know if it was the ethics of AI writing college papers, or if it was just how AI writes college papers or something like that. And it was this really well done paper, and he did really well in the class and on that particular project. And at the end of the essay, it was written by this chatbot, this Chat GPT. And for those of you who don't know a lot about me, my background is in intelligence with the Navy and some civilian sector, and this has been around for a long time. I mean, you know this if you're on social media at all, and these little auto responses come into your feed on Reddit or Facebook or 4chan or what other programs, Stephen?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so you'll be on there doing something and posting something and saying asking a question, and these random bots will come on, and sometimes they're labeled, and they say, I'm a bot. And they can be helpful, right? If you use a program like I do to communicate with some of our military counterparts, we use Slack a lot. And Slack has its own, it's an app, and it has its own built-in chatbot or Slack bot that helps you do common tasks in a sort of a conversational way. Facebook has its own version of that. If you are looking up a business, you're moving here to Whidbey Island, for instance, you Google living on Whidbey, and you find our Facebook page, and you message me on Facebook, on my business side of Facebook, an auto response will come up, and some sort of conversational things will happen, and it's a robot, and it's answering for me some questions, some very basic things. When are you open? What's your phone number? Those kinds of things. And so this has been around, and on the Department of Defense side of things, and private sector side of things, this has been around a long time. And these are used sometimes nefariously, not evident, not obvious that they're just bots, and they are used. A great recent example, public open source example of this was during the 2016 presidential election. There was a lot of misinformation that was put out by supposedly real people, and it looked like real people. If you were in news channels or in different correspondence groups or chat rooms online, and people were arguing with you, or for one side or the other, a lot of it was misinformation that we have since found out from specifically China. And so, and it's safe for me to call that out here. There was some Russian activity as well, but actually a lot of that was from China. So it's not as obvious, right? And so anyway, this tool, openai.com, you can go in and you can just sort of play around with it and see what the AI does for you. So our topic today, now that we're getting in, that's your background. Now we're getting. You have any questions, Stephen, from the audience before we get into the topic here?
No, I was just about to go to sleep, but if
so, our topic today is the ethics behind all of this. There's just such an interesting history behind machines and machine learning, and since the dawn of time, I mean, people have made tools to make their lives better. And that's really the impetus, I think, behind a lot of machines is making everyday life better. And then once you get past your survival stage of humanity, now it gets into the thriving stage of humanity. How do we make it not just survivable and able to grow at scale, a human population, but how do we do this now for our enjoyment? And that's where we really run into the ethic problem, I think. All of the tools, all of the, hey, we need this to survive, we need this to defend ourselves, we need this to produce better crops, we need all this kind of stuff. Not a lot of that. I shouldn't say not a lot of it. A lot of it, whether for good or for bad, is collectively supported by humanity because it's required for survival. But once you get past that into a thriving, hey, we're doing this for our enjoyment now. We're doing this for our pleasure. We're doing this to make life more bearable. Now people start fracturing off, and that's where the ethical question comes from. Now, if you're a Christ follower like I am, and you subscribe to the Christian belief of framework in your life, we hold that ethics is a standard and is set by the God we serve, and that is our left and right limits. Our left and right limits are set and defined well by that religious context. If you are not religious, then the ethical question comes in from the fraction of these people and who, and basically which one of these many camps you fall in. And that's really the issue when it comes to machine learning, is that one, these machines are created, so therefore they're created by someone who holds to a specific ethical background and belief or framework. But two, because there's no set common ground definition of what it means to be ethical, now we come into this issue with the machines. And it may be good for this group, but it's not good for this group. It may be believed as a freedom issue for this and not a freedom. It may be a matter of life, whatever the case is. And so our conversation today, or my monologue, I think, Stephen, is really how do we define a commonality in ethics for those that are working in this field, in this sector? And also the why. Why do machines even need ethics? If we don't have to have machines with ethics, then we're not going to run into this issue at all. But unfortunately, or fortunately, we exist in a time now where machines have ethics, for better or for worse.
Yeah. There's that issue with, I think it was Amazon had an AI thing that would process applications for their new hires.
Yes, I heard about that.
And it would bias out ethnic applicants.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was they determined it was because the programmer based it on whatever group of people, which happened to be predominantly white. And so it got biased based on that. And so there needs to be ethics in machine learning to ensure that it's unbiased as much as possible.
Yeah.
And usually it is, because you've trained it for so long that it usually just finds its own way. And so whatever bias it has is on its data set. And so for ChatGPT, its data set's the internet. And when it first came out, which was a couple years ago, it was vulgar and inappropriate.
Basically sucking in all of the content from 4chan.
Yeah, I mean, most of the content on the internet are comments.
Yeah.
And so it was learning off of that. And so they had to have developers step in and guide it through a bunch of different processes to get it to where it is today. But there's the same problem exists when deep fakes came out and they started deep faking people's images onto videos.
Yeah, that's terrifying.
So I think the solution would be anytime there's AI work being done, whether it's generating an image or deepfake or some text, there should be an option to right click it or whatever and discover that this was generated by an AI. And so that way you can determine, okay, I don't know whether or not this is biased or not, but it was generated by an AI. So at least, you know, I don't have to get mad at the owner of the article or whatever.
Right.
I can do my own research.
Yeah. I think at the end of the day, we are born, we live here, we die, and the whole time we're here on this earth, we are on this quest for what is true and meaningful and fulfilling. And so there's a lot of that is just convoluted when it comes to this kind of technology, because what is truth, as Pontius Pilate would so ominously declare? If it doesn't have any, you know, I can see the benefit behind clicking and knowing that it's an AI if we're within a context of a democracy where lesser evil governments are requiring that to be the case. But in cases such as North Korea or China, where the media is tightly controlled, the narrative is fed as gospel to their people. There's no, you know, now it always goes back to the ethics of the person or the government. You know, like who's going to right click and say, oh, this is an AI. Good. I'm glad I didn't read into that too much. And obviously we have problems with that when it comes to things like the 2016 election, and there's so much, you know, misinformation all around from good or nefarious machines and learning. But when we talk about machine learning, it's really more machine processing. The machine, the word machine in the English language coming from a set of gears or something that you are physically building. Really, when we're talking about machine learning now, we're looking more at the example of the Boston Dynamics robots. You've seen those videos before, the dancing dog that does that kind of thing, or the robot guy that does a backflip and things like that. And it is a piece of hardware and machine and gears. But there's also a software inside there that is then running and calculating and making its own decisions within its own sandbox, within its own left and right limits of what to do when I step here, what to do when I calculate my weight for that perfect flip, or when I do this. And so, or when they send it down, you know, one of the purposes of one of those robots is to use to get into places like 9/11 in the rubble and find survivors. And so navigating on its own and having the software capability to learn and say, okay, I'm using the sensors I have at my disposal to smell that there is oxygen from humans coming this way, or a heartbeat I can hear distinctly this way, or my infrared vision can show me that I need to go this way. And so it is cool, and it's just a crazy, wild and wonderful time to be alive, to experience that kind of stuff. But at the same time, if you've seen the movie with Will Smith, I, Robot,
Yeah.
or if you've read Isaac Asimov's book, I, Robot, he was an author, and he wrote this book, but he was also, and people don't know this, he was or not a lot of people know this, he was a professor of biochemistry at Boston University. And so he wrote these books, but he also unintentionally or maybe intentionally came up with one of the first criterion for machine learning and ethics. If you remember the movie or you read the book, the first law of robotics is a robot may not injure a human being or through inaction allow a human to come to harm. And there's a series of other, I won't spoil the movie for you if you haven't seen it. There's a series of other rules for robotics, for robotic or machine ethics that are in there. And then the premise of the book and movie is that one of the robots decides that these rules, the best way to enact or to enable these rules is to actually hurt and wipe out humans. And so, and I won't spoil how that happens, but it evolved on its own. And we see a lot of that in the example you gave, Stephen, of the deep fakes. We see just most recently, one of the most common or notorious ones was the Ukrainian president shown on TV to his troops to as if he was calling them all to surrender, and it was not him. It was a deep fake produced by the Russian government.
One of those deep franks.
One of those deep fakes, yeah. It was a deep fake. It was a deep fake to cause the downfall of the Ukrainian forces from within, which was, I mean, just a brilliant military tactic, but also terrifying, right? And so,
Yeah, but we have, there are tools that as soon as this stuff comes out, they create tools to detect it. And so there's
yes.
tools that will detect if something's a deep fake, and you can plug the text in and it'll detect if it was written by an AI.
Yeah.
Or, so there's tools to figure all this stuff out.
But that happens at, my Intel guys are doing that. Oh, it just showed up on TV. Quickly, let's determine if this is real or not. But all the troops that are watching this live, they'll find out. Maybe they might find out in 5, 10, 15 minutes, if that fast. But certainly not, probably not that fast, but, hours or days. And at that point, they're already putting down their arms, or they're already getting enraged, or they're already...
Yeah, but a gun will kill someone instantly. And so we still allow guns. We just create checks and balances to allow you to get a gun, and bulletproof vests to protect you from guns, and safety features and all this other stuff. But guns still exist. It's just AI is a tool just like a gun.
Right.
So
I agree.
The ethics are whoever's using it.
Yeah. And so that's really, I think, the conversation and question that I think is important for me as a father, teaching my kids discernment and teaching my kids how to, because discernment isn't something, nobody's born with discernment. Discernment comes from the way we're raised and the experiences we're living through or allowed to live through, and the decisions that we get to make one way or the other and then learn from that. And so teaching discernment to my kids and having this as an open air conversation on the podcast is important for all of us to be asking this question: what am I looking at? What am I reading? Could this be the real person? Could this be not? What is this machine? What is this doing? Like all of everything we interact with, which is exhausting, but everything we interact with, is it something I need to make a decision based off of this, or can I gather more, more facts? There's a lot more to this question that we could go on about. There's a company in Tampa. Well, they're kind of all over, but USS SOCOM, the Special Operations Command out of Tampa, Florida, there is a couple of companies that partner with them, along with other organizations. This one in particular called SoftWorks, WERX. And you could visit softworks.org. They have a couple other branches, DefenseWorks, also spelled WERX. When I was there for one of my graduate classes, they had this young and this is there's a civilian run aspect or arm of this group, and one of their labs, I guess, their tech guys, they're all these 20-year-olds that are, walking around in this futuristic shop, and there's like drones flying around and hoverboards and whatever kind of crazy stuff that these geniuses are building and doing. And one of our classes, one of these guys brought in a briefcase, and he opened the briefcase, and 6 rolling robots about the size of a croquet ball came out, and he put them on the table, and it was just it was like a work table or whatever, long, probably 6 foot by 4 foot table. And his job, he was a liaison between SOFWorks and DefenseWorks and SOCOM. His job was to determine and help these geniuses at these companies partner with the Special Forces branches in creating tech that could serve the purposes of SOCOM, but also do it in an ethical way. And I thought that was pretty interesting, that his whole job was to take the toys that or the thoughts or the projects that they were working on, and you can go back and look at some of the past projects that are open source now, but to take those and apply them in a way that not only met the requirements of the U.S. government in terms of this is the mission requirement, but also met the requirements of the U.S. political system in the government. And does this fall within our legal bounds when we're doing something? And part of that involved the ethics behind it, because we're a democracy, and we have more people involved, which makes it a lesser evil government system, and therefore slightly more ethics than something that we would have seen in China or North Korea or Russia or wherever. So he put these 6 robots on the table, and he said, "This is what I look for." And he said, before I turn these on, the goal is for these robots to get to this plate of food, and it was real food, but obviously the robots weren't going to eat the food, but it was a treat, to simulate a treat, essentially, and to be the first one there, and to be the only one there. So he opened up his briefcase, had a laptop in it, and he typed in these commands, these rules. Rule number 1, you need to be the first one there. Rule number 2, you need to be the only one at this table, and at this plate of cookies. And then he said, now I'm going to let the AI then determine how it wants to accomplish that.
Yeah, it's going to knock all the other ones off the table.
Well, so he basically gave them all a free pass, and that's what it was. He said, okay, now you need to accomplish these 2 tasks, but however you do that, within your capability, you do that. And they could roll around. They look like this was before the new Star Wars movies had come out, but looking back on it, it looked kind of like the BB-8 character, just without the head. And
like a droidica.
A droidica, sure. And it just had 3 little sensors on the front, and it could roll and change directions and kind of sense each other positionally. And so they all started taking off. As soon as he hit the enter button, all 6 just took off. And the way that they're wired is in a swarm capacity, which is an interesting technology that we can discuss a little bit later. But if you've seen, go on YouTube and look up swarm technology and drones. They do these pretty incredible light shows now where they launch 100, 1,500, whatever a number of drones, and they all are programmed into in sync to perform light shows or do whatever. And in the same time, there's a military application there that multiple countries, including ours, have used. And it doesn't just apply to drones, but these 6 little robots had this technology and programming code embedded in them, so they were aware of each other. And they were aware when the other one was not moving or which direction they were moving. So all 6 of these robots start racing to the other end of the table for this because they know they've all locked in. They know where that plate is. They're going there, or they think they know where that plate is. It's been pointed out that it's somewhere over there, and they're kind of searching for it as they go. You can kind of see them wiggling back and forth as they go run down the table. And you can see them kind of get to the edge, and they know not to fall off the edge, and they're kind of like using the one little sensor they have to see where this plate is. Well, one of these robots, and this is where I did not end up sleeping that night, one of these robots just stopped halfway down the table. And we're like, oh, his batteries ran out or whatever. What a cool demonstration. And he stopped, and he started, after about 3 seconds, he started going backwards slowly. And the other 5 robots started doing these circles. It was like they were like I don't know, a dog when it spins or something to try to find its center. And they started looking around the table, and they started kind of slowing down their speed, and they were looking back, and they looked at this, or they sensed that their counterpart was not with them. And this one drone, this one little robot started rolling backwards faster and faster and faster, but at a slowly increasing speed as it went all the way back. And as it picked up its speed, the other ones realized or thought, oh my gosh, he's onto something. He found it, because he didn't waver. Like the other robots had done these little, S movements or wobbling around to try to figure out where this thing, but this guy was like pinned on, dead shot, straight to the end of the table. And that was, I guess, a signal of like, oh, he's locked onto something. He knows where it is, and he's going to get there. We need to be there first. And so they all immediately started racing backwards, and they started picking up speed, and they were going way faster than he was. And he got just about to the edge of the table, and right before he got to the edge, he sped up one more time and then slammed on his little brake, and he stopped right at the edge of the table. The other 5 were going so fast and were so concerned that he was locked onto something that they flew off the edge of the table. They realized as they're passing him that that they had made a mistake or whatever, that they were trying to slow down because they saw the edge of the table coming, but they didn't. They ended up flying right off, and the instructor had laid a blanket down, because apparently that's happened before. And so they caught the other 5 there and powered them off. And then this one just turned around and went back and started searching all the way to the other end of the table and found the plate of cookies. And that was terrifying to me, because somebody had made that code to be as open-ended as possible within the physical capabilities of this robot, and using whatever it deemed ethical to accomplish those 2 goals, it did. So you can imagine if somebody had put a weapon on it or an arm or whatever, and had given it similar instructions. Now we're in the process of, and why, and the instructor basically said, this is why my job's important. Imagine if there was a weapon on this robot. Imagine if this robot was 20 feet tall. Imagine if this robot was made out of this material or whatever. And he said, this is why I do it. And I was like, that would be a cool job.
Yeah, but a nuke is deadly too. I mean, we still have nukes.
Yeah, but we're humans. What?
You're saying like, imagine if it
had
a
all
weapon.
that capability and it was its own autonomous.
Yeah, it's dangerous,
That's what I'm
huh?
saying, yeah.
A nuke is dangerous.
Well, yeah, if it had a nuke.
No,
You mean
I mean,
us having a nuke?
nukes exist. We
Yes,
have
but
nukes.
that's the point. We have checks and balances. As broken as those are too, yes. But we have checks and balances.
So he
as a
wasn't
group of-
able to like turn those off.
No, he didn't. The instructor?
He couldn't turn them off whenever he wanted.
No, he could in this example. But
Yeah. So, I mean, what robot are you ever going to make that you can't turn off?
well, that's the question, isn't it? If one of your goals is like iRobot, to save humans at all costs, but also not to let yourself be damaged, and also not to do X, Y, and Z, now there's some contradictory that the robot starts thinking, I can no longer damaging, not just damaging, but turning me off, because I'm not able to protect myself if I'm turned off. Therefore, I must never be allowed to turn off. Now I need to build a battery pack or
So then you're allowing it to
create.
its own.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I mean, just in the example of this story, this robot creating its own decisions. Think if it was able to actually write its own code, or to create its own, which would then be connected to a series of 3D printers or whatever to make other mechanical parts.
You are so like.
This is a real thought.
Yeah, have you seen Transcendence with Johnny Depp?
Oh,
That's exactly what happens.
that's
Is they give him access to write his own code and access the internet.
yeah. No. What was the one with with what's her name?
Yeah, Transcendence.
No, the girl from.
Yeah, he dies. He goes on the computer.
No. She's Black Widow,
Yeah,
and she's the ghost. She's a ghost.
he's from Pirates of the Caribbean.
Now it's Ghost.
Ghost in the Shell.
Ghost movie. You don't remember her name?
Ghost in the Shell.
Ghost in the Shell. Yeah. Ghost in the Shell. That's the one.
Yeah, no, it's
Right.
like Transcendence. That is like, hey, we made a robot, didn't realize it was a robot. Typical robot movie.
Typical robot movie. Yeah.
Yeah, but you'll never have to worry about that because AI code, is all task specific. So it's not like chatbot's ever going to start
You think it's task specific.
creating.
Scarlett Johansson. Sorry about that, audience. I know you were all hurting and shouting at the podcast at the episode as I'm thinking. Scarlett Johansson. That's her name. In Ghost of the Shell. Ghost in the Shell. 2017. Okay. Anyway. Yeah, I think, AI it's at a point right now where it is unlimited in its ability in certain aspects, but the creators, depending on if it's a military use or a civilian use like this chat GPT, or if it's, a TikTok use. Hey, by the way, those of you on TikTok, it's just collecting your metadata and your biodata and being stored for future. Anyway, different conversation. But there's a lot of that out there that's used for this kind of, it's innocent and for our own entertainment, and it's free.
No, yeah,
exactly,
but it's
which makes you the product.
can't ever. Other than mental damage, which anything can give you that. It'll never like control more than what it was made to do. So it can only take in one input, in this example text, and it can only give one output, which is more text. Or
You mean the chat bot?
yeah,
Yeah.
or the deepfake can only take in images and video data and output video data.
Sure. But we have robots that can do that too and can think outside of those parameters. I guess the question is if they can't pass the Turing test, then we're still fine.
No, unless someone specifically designs a malicious robot. I mean, there are things you can use these to do maliciously.
Which have been done, yes.
Yeah, but there are things you can do with a can opener maliciously. I mean,
I guess you're defending
I'm saying
You're
that
defending the at-scale model. Like, yes, on the one-on-one smaller examples, it's okay. But until we have a machine that controls all of our launch codes, we're okay.
yeah, you would never create something that can change and give it control over something that can harm a human.
Unless it was designed for that.
So for example, like Tesla's self-driving cars is an AI model, but
Sure.
that AI model can never change. It's not going to like change while you're driving down the road.
You mean rewrite its own
Exactly.
code or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, or this really sweet brewery that I just saw that's all robotics, and you put in your request, and then a couple robot arms go to all these taps.
Yeah, that's not AI. Someone just programmed in. This
Yeah.
is where the syrup is.
That's fair. But that's so cool.
You're so unqualified to talk about.
This is not professionals talking about a professional subject. This is us wanting to share this with you all. To get you thinking. Okay, so let's end this. I want to leave everyone with this. Back to the parenting example. Discernment is something taught and learned and not something naturally born with. People can be born gifted with, better wisdom or whatever, or prone to making better decisions. But how do we, in a generation, an era, an age of AI, in a generation age of machine learning, in a generation age of us with an ability to create something else that can do and think for itself, how do we infuse ethics into that, or the lack of ethics into that? And how do we, or what do we use as a commonality for that ethics? Do we do it nation by nation? Do we do it company by company? Do we do it religious group by the religious group? Whatever that is, we ought to be aware that it's happening around us. We ought to teach that to our children. And that applies to anytime we make any decision in voting or in purchasing something or in whatever, that there's more going on behind the scenes. Not that we should all be walking around skeptical of everybody and everything, but there's a little bit of that to be self-preserve and realize that when you leave your shopping cart open online with a product in it, guess what? It's going to go up over time because the bots back there are making it seem like the products are more scarce and you've only got 5 more minutes and you need to do this. Oh, it just went up 16 cents because whatever. So clear your cookies.
Goodness gracious.
This is a separate conversation.
So far off machine learning.
That's just a pet peeve of mine. I need to teach. One of the things we want to do, one of the things I want to do, I'm going to rope Steven into this, is volunteering our time at the local senior center. And I hope that somebody will do this for me when I am also older.
They don't have internet access there.
Stuck in a senior center. They do. They all have internet. And it's so hard to watch because there's the functions or the things that are needed are so simple, and we need to be courteous and go volunteer our time to help this out and teach some basic classes because we are blessed to be born with this kind of stuff. And I hope that someday somebody, when we're doing everything live in the cloud or whatever, that someone will teach me, Grandpa.
They just need to make a leapfrog
version of it for Grandpa.
Yeah,
for me as a grandpa.
For computers, yeah.
The jitterbug.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. Well, as my kids would say.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Anna Vivo podcast. We welcome your feedback and ideas. You can learn more about us by simply Googling the word Anna Vivo. This podcast is supported by listeners like you. I am a licensed real estate broker with Compass Real Estate and a nationwide real estate matchmaker. We consult with you for free, find and vet the right real estate professional that specializes in the area and niche you need, are paid by that professional, and they get clients like yourself who want and need their unique specialty or winning track record. If you or someone you know is in the market to buy or sell real estate anywhere in the U.S., don't simply web search the highest paying advertiser. Let us use our licensed experience to find and vet the real and best professional for you. It costs you nothing but a phone call or email with me, and has saved my clients financially and emotionally. I'd be honored to serve, and you can reach me direct by email at tim.c.miller@outlook.com. And as always, to God be the glory.